Ladies, gentlemen, and others, welcome back to Boz Comics. Thanks so much to anyone who sat and listened to my 20 plus minute tirade yesterday talking about the new mission statement for the channel, where I've been, and why I'm back. You're primed and ready, okay? If you've watched that video, you know what we're all about here, okay? I'm the outlying liberal trying to affect change in the modern day comic book industry. And coming off of our discussion about right wing voices versus left wing voices in comic books and why it's all a clusterfuck and how we talk to one another, I wanted to try to use a recent example to kind of take that discussion further. This time I'm going to try to do it in, let's see, 18 minutes or less, because my wife and I just moved into a new house recently, and we are about to move some furniture. But I wanted to get these thoughts out while they were still kind of fresh in the depressed, depraved soup that is my mind. So, why is there a bias against conservatives in comic books? And in fact, lots of entertainment, but we talk about comics on this channel, so I'm going to try to keep it focused there. Where does this bias come from? I think a lot of the people on the right, or at least people who are sympathetic to a lot of right-wing views, I think, and this is not necessarily like criticism, okay? I just think a lot of them really miss the forest for the trees. They don't truly understand. They truly don't understand why there's such a bias against them. And I'll get right to the point. It's because people in power, I use that term loosely, right? But people in the position to make decisions and push ideas and push products within the industry, they find their ideas repugnant. That's the thing. I really don't think that people, especially within the Comicsgate movement, I don't think they understand. They really think that a lot of those right-wing talking points, it's not just that they disagree. You know, people are always like, why can't we just agree to disagree? Why do they push back against us so hard? Well, it's not because they just think you're wrong. They genuinely think that you're evil, or at least that your ideas are beyond the pale. I just think that a lot of people on the right don't get it. I don't think that... I want to preface this because if people haven't gotten this by now, like, clearly I am sympathetic to a lot of the ideas of OG Comicsgate, right? You know, I think that hiring practices should be based more on merit. I think that there are huge quality issues in storytelling and in art. I am really tired of all of these replacement characters, especially when they seem to be more about diversity, for its own sake, rather than telling any sort of truly compelling stories. I don't like the way in which a lot of professionals communicate with fans and potential customers on social media. You know, all manner of things. I get it. I get it. I'm still with a lot of those ideas at the core. But I am also a liberal, and that's kind of one of the driving forces of this channel. So I'm kind of in, I think, a unique position to understand things in a way that I really don't think a lot of people get. People that are against the way things are in the world right now, people who rebel, and you don't have to debate my actual politics, okay? This is not meant to be me saying, you have to think like me. You have to jump from the right and get in the left. You have to agree with all my opinions on social reform and how taxes should be applied and what's good for the country and the world. That's not what this is. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to explain. When you're against, like, the current administration, when you think that Trump is a terrible president, when you see what you perceive, okay, at the very least, we can agree that this is what the left perceives. When you perceive racial injustice, when you perceive sexism, when you perceive corruption, and, you know, when you perceive these gross power imbalances, these are things that you want to see heroes engage with, right? These are evils that you want to see fought against. You know, we talk about how, oh man, I really want all these, like, current day issues, like, removed from my escapist material. Well, part of the fantasy inherent in comic books is seeing a better world, and part of how we reach a better world is we fight back against, those things that we perceive as tarnishing our present reality. um and the thing is that people on the left, a lot of us hold, these sorts of views. We see these racial and gender based inequities. We see all sorts of uh, wealth inequality, all sorts of things. I just went through the list. I'm not going to do it again. That's the peril of doing these unscripted. I'm sorry. Um, but we see these as real problems. And so a lot of conservative talking points come up right against that. A lot of you guys that are on the right wing, you have your beliefs and you're very resolute in them. And again, this video is not me trying to change that. It's totally fine. You do you, okay? But please try to understand that people more on my side of things, we think that your ideas are terrible. We think that they're in direct opposition to what would make the world a better place. And so then when we take that into comic books, and we creators who are more left-leaning and they want to try to use those heroes as a vehicle to fight against those problems we see in some small way, um, what you are looking at as just a difference of opinion is, to a lot of us, a real force of evil, a real problem in the world. They don't see your views as equally valid. And I think that a lot of times that's not altogether fair, but that's the reality of it. The reason they don't treat you with respect, the reason that they don't hear you out, why they shout you down, why they call you names, why they try to stifle your voice, they genuinely don't think that you're on the same level. They think that you're spouting nonsense. They think that you are harmful. They think that you are trying to drag us back down when they're trying to raise us up. And so when you're sitting there and you're wondering, like, why is there such a bias against conservative viewpoints in the comic book industry? Because mainstream comics are largely about heroes, and right or wrong, they see you guys as the bad guys. I'm gonna try to put this into comic book terms to really drive this point home. Okay. If you come up to Shield and you're trying to get a job and they're interviewing, whatever, I'm sure that this is kind of a goofy analogy. Like, Shield probably has some insane vetting process that rivals the FBI and the CIA put together times 10. But let's just say you could just go in and interview for Shield like any other job. And you're like, I want to fight bad guys. And they're like, fuck yeah. And they go, wow, geez, we looked at your social media profile for the last 20 years because we're Shields. And you've said a lot of positive things about the Red Skull and some of his initiatives. Are you sure that you're in the right place? And then you respond with, like, well, I think the Red Skull has some pretty solid ideas. What, you guys don't support a difference of opinion? I know that sounds really stupid and goofy, and that's because, especially in the context of this analogy, it kind of is. But that's like the reality of what's going on. They're not just trying to keep you down because they disagree with you. They think you're beyond the pale. They think that you are morally bankrupt. They hate your ideas, not because they think that you're, like, exposing some truth about them. There's no grand fucking conspiracy in that regard. They don't want to listen to you because they think you're gross. Like, excuse me. So I'm going to close this up by just kind of like reinforcing my point. I was just watching the latest video by Perch. I really like Perch. I've been talking about comics by Perch off and on. I was speaking about him in yesterday's video. I really love him. He's great. He's kind of what I'm looking to be. I don't think he considers himself left-leaning. I think he's probably more on the conservative side of things. I really don't know. It doesn't matter. He really tries to be fair and balanced and nuanced, and I really like that because, as I've said, I think that's a lot of what's missing, and that's what I'm trying to do here. But I was watching his most recent video, and he was talking about some of the recent drama with Scott Snyder and Tom King and their issue with Dean Cain. Dean Cain, for those of you who don't know, used to play Superman on a sort of drama sitcom called Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman in the early 90s. And for a lot of people, it ran for like 4 seasons. And for like a lot of people, myself included, although I was probably way too young for the show, whatever. My parents just kind of let me watch it because like, oh, dude, it's Superman. For a lot of people, that was our live action Superman. You know, to us, the only notable thing that Dean Cain has ever done is playing Superman. You know, and now he goes out and he's kind of been excommunicated from Hollywood, right or wrongly. You know, we can debate that all day. And he's a frequent commentator, I guess, or guest at least, on Fox News. He is an avowed conservative. He has lots of conservative talking points that he throws out there. And but you got to remember, keep this in mind. The guy, for a lot of us, is Superman. So most recently, I guess he was on some show. I haven't seen the clip, so take that with a grain of salt. I'm just kind of reiterating what I've heard, like in Perch's video and other places. He had made some reference to the fact that Superman, in his opinion, can no longer get away with saying truth, justice, and the American way, right? And on Twitter, Tom King, who is most known for that Batman run that I like to defend, that a lot of people like to shit all over, but who has also written Superman, you know, he comes back and he says something like, Perch censored himself, and I will not. Tom King says, motherfucker, I just wrote that in a comic. Now, in Dean's defense, it wasn't exactly as Tom King presented it. He did write it in a comic, but he didn't have Superman say it. He had somebody else say it while thinking about Superman, but whatever. The point was the feud, and Perch was wondering, you know, why is this feud happening? Like, what point is served? Oh, because like Tom King came at him, and then Dean Cain like responded, and I guess had some issues with Tom King swearing, you know, while trying to rep for Superman. And then Tom King came back and was like, I was in the CIA. Like, and then Scott Snyder got involved. And I think there might have been some other pros who piled on as well. And Perch was wondering, like, what purpose does this serve? What on either side, like, what's really to gain here? How is this productive? You know, why would we engage in this way? And I kind of wrote Perch a giant fucking novel in his comment sections. I really hope he doesn't mind. But I had tried to break it down because I don't see this get talked about enough. I was like, this guy represents, for a lot of people, Superman. That character is now inexorably tied to who he is as a person. So this man, who a lot of us think of as Superman in some way, is espousing conservative talking points that people on the left don't just disagree with, they think are evil. They think they are the antithesis to progress. So to a lot of people, seeing someone like Dean Cain saying these things marks him as sort of a real betrayal of what Superman represents. So it's hard not to rise to that. It's hard not to respond and go off because, you know, you would think that. So there's a lot of criticism from the Comicsgate crowd, and I have agreed with this on numerous occasions, mind you, that a lot of the people creating comics today aren't all that passionate about these things. You know, they're either looking at them as purely, they're looking at comics either purely as a vehicle to push their own beliefs, or they're looking at them as just a means to jump higher up into the industry to get the Netflix deal, right? There's lots of talk about the highly coveted Netflix deal, right? All that shit. A way to springboard into TV or movies or what have you. But there are a lot of creators that do seem to care. Love him or hate him, I think Tom King is one of those creators that really cares. Sean Gordon Murphy really cares. Scott Snyder really cares. All these creators, they're people who really fucking care. I really don't think you can argue against that. And so with that in mind, when you see someone who's supposed to represent Superman espousing ideas that you don't just disagree with, but you find morally repugnant, it's really hard not to get in there and go, bro, what the fuck? You're going to have some shit to say because in some small part, you are custodians of these great heroes who represent so much to so many. And so when you think about where does this anti-conservative bias come from, they're not just out to get you because you voted for Trump. I know that gets talked about a lot on Twitter and what have you, okay? But it's so much deeper than that. And I think people just get so short-sighted, they don't truly understand this at its core. They think you're the bad guys. And if you want them to think differently, I'm not saying you have to change your views, but you really have to change the way you engage with the conversation if you want to affect change. And you really need to better understand, what it is that's going on and what shit like this means, because it may seem inconsequential to you, but to people who care about these characters, it's so much more than that. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. I have to go move some furniture like a fucking adult. Much love to you guys. Please, like, share, comment, subscribe. Every little bit helps. I am trying to grow this channel. So take care of yourselves. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.